Hi, Reading 100 students. I hope you guys are well. So the purpose of this video is to go into the introduction and the abstract of a research paper. So just a quick recap. So the first video was about the overview of research paper, where we looked at the abstract, introduction, methods, results, discussions, and findings. Okay. Now, the purpose of this video is to go into depth of the first two, which is the abstract and the introduction. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Okay. So basically, the purpose of this lesson is to look at the abstract. What does it look like? How can you identify it? What information is in there? And then looking at the introduction, which focuses more on the background and the goals of the research. Okay, so let's start off with we looked at what is a research paper. All right, so we said it's a formal document that answers a question using evidence. That question, we often call it a hypothesis. All right, and as we said in a research paper, there's an abstract, introduction, methods, results, discussions, and the conclusion. Okay, but for today, we're going to look at what is an abstract, which is a short summary, what it is standing for, and how does it reflect to the readers. And then we're going to look at the introduction, where it gives us background and context, explains the problem and what is missing, and then obviously stating the research question, almost like a thesis statement. Okay, so abstract. So the key characteristics of an abstract is that it's a very short summary. It's around about 150 to 200 words, about one paragraph, if not half of a paragraph, okay? And in this abstract, you tell us what, why, how, and the results. Includes the purpose, the methods, and the key findings. It helps the readers to kind of have a quick scope of what the entire paper is about. So imagine it being a very short summary, okay? It's self-contained and it can be understood without reading the full paper. That's the most important thing, is that when I look at your abstract, I need to be able to understand exactly what was your question, how did you do the research, is it a case study, what were the results and the conclusion, just from that small paragraph, okay? If I'm reading your abstract and I cannot understand what you're doing or what your research is about, that means your abstract needs to be revised, right? What does an abstract contain? It always has the topic and the purpose, what the study is about and why it matters. So if the study is about mental health problems, okay, affecting learners in university, it needs to be in there, all right? If you are saying that you used surveys, it needs to be in there. What was the results? It needs to be in there. And the conclusion, the results, okay, of the entire study. One thing that is good is that often researchers write the abstract last because of the fact that you still don't know the research findings. So you first have to do the research findings, so the methods, and then you'll be able to say what the results are. Right, so let's get into it. And I think if you guys see an example, then it will be easier to understand. So this is an example of an abstract paper or an abstract paragraph. So let's read it together. It says there, this study examines how online learning helps first year students in class reading 100. Okay. So already it tells me what is the study. All right. It tells us online learning helping students, not online learning, not helping, not does it not. No, it tells us exactly. Okay. The survey of 120 students, okay, was conducted in 4 weeks. Students saved 4 hours, sorry, let me just 4 hours of travel time per week. all right, to clock in study hours and replayed records of review of difficult concept. Most students reported that there are less stress and better time management, all right, for online learning, and the test scores were 8% higher than in the previous term. These results suggest that online learning supports student success by giving more control over time and more chances to practice. So from here, you can see in the abstract, it tells us that it saves time, the lessons were recorded, flexible hours, and better scores, right? Those are my results, and I included that. I also included what was my study about, how was it conducted? We surveyed 120 students, which is my method. So that is exactly how an abstract should look like, okay? So let's look at the key components of this abstract. It tells us the topic, online learning for first year students, the method, surveyed 120 students that were tracked for 4 weeks. The results, 4 hours saved, 8% higher scores. Conclusion, online learning supports success. There you go. Okay. So that means that in your abstract, you should have all the key parts. You do not elaborate. You do not tell me deeper reasons. Just what you did, how you did it, and what were the results. Why this works? Because it clearly states your purpose in the first sentence. Okay. And it's very specific on the number and the data, and the conclusion matches the findings. All right. So that is an example of an abstract. The next part that I want to show with to you guys, all right, is the introduction. Now, the introduction is longer than an abstract. It's not a summary. It's actually a lot more. It gives us the background information about the topic. All right. So you go back and say, well, online learning started in this year through an American university, and it has proven to be a success now over, 120 universities across the world. All of them have an online learning component. So you give us more information. Establishes why the topic is important. You're telling us why is it a good topic. And it sets the stage for the research. It gives us clarity on which students are you going to be doing this on. Is it between two universities or one university? You give us all of that information. You also state the problem and the gap, okay? Explain what the problem you are solving. So the problem was, is online learning a help? And the problem would be sometimes in-person classes are not easy for students, especially during times where universities are shut, okay? Or when students cannot commute to university because they live far. So that is a gap, okay? And you show what is missing in current research and you identify the research gap. All right. In the introduction, you also state the research questions, explain what you want to find out, and set direction for the study. It tells us, are you doing this over a year? Was it done over a year study, or was it just a study you did over 3 months? Okay. It may also show the paper plan. I will say that, in this paper, we're going to look at the literature review, which is often in a research paper, the methods, we're going to be using surveys. It outlines each section's covers and help readers navigate through the paper. Okay, so an introduction is a lot more clear and it gives us a lot more information and background of the study. What are you doing, Riri? Okay, so when we look at the background, sorry, the introduction, I want to give you guys an example of it. So this is what an introduction would look like. Okay, and the letters or the sentences in bold are representing the important information that's represented within an introduction paper or introduction section. For example, many college students now learn online. Okay, that is your hook. A research paper does not need an attention grabbing hook. You're not here to grab attention, you are here to represent research. Okay, so as you can see here, the hook is many college students now learn online. From that hook, I can automatically see where we're going. We're going about online, so it's about digital platforms, and we're going to talk about college students. So, two important things, all right? Then it goes into the background. Some people think online classes are less effective than face-to-face classes. However, we do not have much data from first-year students in class reading 100. All right. So it says that some people think that online classes are less effective than face-to-face classes. But that's just what people think. We need to do the research. We don't have the data of how students feel about reading 100 classes, for example. This study asks, what are the positive effects of online learning for our students? That is the research questions. What are the positive effects of online learning for our research students? All right. Then it says we expect that online learning saves travel time, gives flexible study hours, and helps review with recorded lessons. In this paper, we explain why this is important and how we collect data and what we have found. All right. So as you can see, an introduction gives us a bit more context than the abstract. Okay. It has a hook. It tells us what's the problem. It tells us our research questions, the expectations of the answers. Sorry. And it gives us a roadmap. In this paper, we explain why is it important, how we collected data, and what we found. okay? Data, which is your methods, what we found, which is your results, all right? Why this works? Because a background, this particular introduction gives us a very clear background. It identifies a specific gap within the knowledge, and also it states clear research question. Then here is an introduction from a Journal of Education Technology in 2026, volume 15, issue 3. Okay. This is what your introduction will look like. So many college students now learn online, and this is a common phenomena. It's a fact. Some people have different opinions. Others believe that it is effective, but others believe that it's not as effective as face-to-face classes. However, we do not know how effective or not effective it is for a Reading 100 class. It tells us where this research is going by saying in this study, we ask the positive effects of online learning for our students. All right. And it kind of tries to predict or expect that online learning will save time, gives flexibility in study hours, and helps students review their recorded lectures. In this paper, we explain why this is important, how we collected the data, and what we found. This is what an introduction in a research paper would look like. Okay, so let's look at it again. The differences between an abstract and introduction. Abstract, it's always short in length. Okay, it summarizes the main focus and it's in the past tense. That's one more thing. All right, you're saying that we did this research, this is what was used, this how long it took, this was our population of data collection. Okay. Whereas in an introduction, it's longer, it gives us more context, it's written in the present time, it may include a roadmap for the paper, and it usually gives us more background information and the problem within the context. Okay? All right, so let's do a quick recap. Abstract sentences, starters. So this is always a good way to kind of test yourself whether you understand something is to look at the sentence starters. So for example, the first one says, this study examines, definitely in an abstract, not a research paper. Sorry, not an introduction. We surveyed, we observed. Those are very good starters, and they're written in the past tense. We found, which tells us about a result. Again, results do not go into the introduction, okay? But in an abstract, yes, these results suggest, etc. Okay? So we keep it short, it includes numbers, and we are very specific. And then the introduction, on the other hand, it tells us a different type of information we do not know, which means in this research, we have this question. We need to actually do the data collection to understand or to gain more knowledge. Okay. This study asks, okay, many students, very general, but it also gives a bit more specific information in terms of our population. All right. So those are the two differences. So let's look at it. An abstract goes at the beginning of the paper. It's very short, 150 to 200 words. It's often written in the past tense. It gives us clarity on the methods that were used, okay? The structure and the results. That's it. Introduction gives us a bigger scope. It tells us the population, the research gap, the research question, and also the thesis, which is the hypothesis for the rest of the paper. All right, so this is what we're going to look at, or this is what we looked at in the first two parts of a research paper. Another video will come out where we're going to look at the methods and the results. Okay, so number one, abstract. Number two, introduction. Number three, methods. Then we're going to look at results. And then further on, we'll look at discussion and conclusion. Okay, so I hope this was very useful. Please watch it because on Thursday you will get a short little exercise which will be graded. Thank you very much and take care.